and welcome to the Voices of Forestry podcast. I'm your host, Seth Stephenson, the communications coordinator with the Arkansas Forestry Association. And today we are back with another Voices of Forestry episode. We're going to be taking a little trip down memory lane, a bit of a hot memory lane, if you will, as we take a look back at the fires that kind of rocked the entire state of Arkansas back last year in March of 2025. That's going to be about March 19th specifically is the date that we're looking at. But before we get into that discussion and our guest for this month, let me give a special shout out and thank you to our sponsor, Caribou Software. We're going to hear a little bit more from them later on in this episode. But for now, let me introduce my guest today. He's back again for his third time around. It's Mr. Robert Murphy, the Emergency Services Director with the Arkansas Department of Agriculture Forestry Division. Robert, thank you for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I think you might be one of the first people I've had that have gone for the hat trick, the podcast hat trick, three episodes this time around. So
okay,
awesome. Well, Robert, this is something I know you and I kind of been talking here before we started recording, but Max Braswell, our executive vice president, has been talking with you about this idea for a minute, kind of looking back at what happened on March 19th in 2025. It was kind of a big deal. It just kind of seemed like the whole state was on fire. For a little bit.
We had 96 fires that we responded to that day, and that's not including fires that our volunteer fire departments and other fire departments went to that we never were able to get to. Like I said, I know we've had we had like 25 in Ouachita County or something like that we never went to. I heard numbers of around 45 or so in places like around Benton there that we didn't go to. So that's just what we went to was a 96. So there was a lot of fire that day that were scattered across the state.
And let's just kind of put that in perspective just a little bit. I guess to get to that number 96 fires in one day, how long does it usually take you guys to kind of see 96 fires? I guess ballpark it, because I know it kind of changes.
That morning, it started fairly early. So I think I went back like 2 days later and looked at my call log for that day, just to kind of wrap my head around how busy it was. And my phone really started blowing up about 10 o'clock that morning. And I went from 10 o'clock that morning till it was about 11:30 that night that my phone didn't. The longest it went from either making or receiving a call was 15 minutes.
Wow.
In that time span, and of course we're having conversations in between those calls, with people, and a lot of times we were doing 2 or 3 way calling whenever I'd be on the phone. It would be with the deputy state forester and the state forester at the same time, or it would be with my dispatch manager and my fire management officer at the same time. So it'd be 2 or 3 people on the phone at one time. But yeah, it was my call log. It took a minute to go through it and just kind of wrap my head around what all had happened that day.
So let's back up just a little bit, because you kind of mentioned to me too that really things kind of started, not to the degree that it was on the 19th, but it kind of started that Monday on the 17th, right?
Right. That Monday on the 17th, we started with a fire here in West Pulaski County, and that was the big one. We had fires other places as well, but we started really that day, the 17th, with a big fire that was just over, I think it was like 1,500 acres that we had out here. I was just south of the golf club out there. And so we started there, and then we were busy the 17th, and that fire went over into the 18th, and then we had fires other places around the state that week as well, and then like I said, the 19th, and we knew the 19th was coming. We could look at weather forecast and look at what was going on in Oklahoma and states to our west, and we knew that there was a dry cold front moving through, and that it was going to bring some very gusty winds behind it, and the humidity was going to drop out. So we could see those things kind of lining up, and we were kind of prepared for it, but we weren't. I don't think we one of those things you get prepared for, but you really don't know how bad it's going to be till you get there. And then there were compounding factors that happened as well. So our dispatch center had a tree fall across our internet provider for the dispatch center, so the dispatch center had no internet,
of course,
for most part of the day. So we had to scratch all the new nice computer generated and aided maps and dispatching program that we had, and we had to go back to filling out hand papers on every fire that we were going to and trying to keep notes that way. Our dispatch center was quite a chaotic scene for most of the day.
Just a salt in the wound at that point. Losing your internet.
Just rub it in a little harder.
So I think it's also good to remind folks, and we probably talked about this when you did your wildfire episode a while ago with me, that the conditions like this are something that you guys are constantly kind of looking at.
Right.
So it wasn't, again, you guys knew that it was probably something bad was going to happen, maybe not to the extent, but you guys had been looking and were kind of ready to go for when something.
Yeah, we had an idea that it was going to happen. Now, obviously everybody knows how the weather is, and I'm not poking fun at weathermen, but it's the computer models just don't do a very good job until right before something happens to tell you what's going to happen. So we're constantly watching local weather. The National Weather Service is great to help us out, and they've got people at our National Weather Service office here in Little Rock that are dedicated to doing fire predictions and fire weather, and we work real closely with them. And but yeah, we kind of had an idea that it was coming, but nobody knew just exactly how bad it was going to be until we got there anyway.
So let's talk about the day, and you get your first call at 10 a.m. or so.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
So what does the day look like from your perspective? You get that first call, and what happens then?
Well, so we first started, we were getting calls, and things were, hey, look, it's getting bad, and we've got a lot of people out on fires. So we start talking about resources and managing those resources around the state. Because at one point that day we had everything that we have was already on a fire, and it's a not a good feeling when you call dispatch and say, hey, I need another dozer at this fire, and the reply from dispatch is, we don't have another dozer to send you. You just got to make do with what we got. And that doesn't happen very often, right? It's probably only happened. I've been at this for over 20 years now, and it's probably only happened one or two times in my career where I've heard dispatch say we don't have anything else to send. So we start managing those resources, and another rubbing salt in the wound. The winds were so high that day. We have contracted resources like. We have single engine air tankers that we contract with every year. We have them for 60 days in the springtime, and we have them 60 days in the fall as well. But the winds were so high that they couldn't fly that day. So there was resources that were unavailable, and so not just those planes, but our spotter planes that our guys have come to rely on when they're on a fire. They can call dispatch and get a plane in the air, and a plane looking down on a fire can really give them a good perspective over what's coming up, what it's burning into, what the activity looks like. Are there any hazards that they can't see from the ground? Those planes were all grounded as well. So we couldn't get any planes in the air. And we were having to try to figure out, how are we going to get through this? What are we going to do with these people too? Because I've got dispatchers that are running crazy. So I called our aviation manager, and I was like, what are y'all doing today since you can't fly? So, well, we're just catching up on logbooks. I was like, well, why don't y'all wait and do that another day? Go to the dispatch center, because they're on the same They're in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
I said, go up to the dispatch center and just answer the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Just pick up the phone and write information down. So they'll show you the form to start, and you can start taking reports for them as things come in. And you don't have to dispatch anybody. Just take reports and write down information. And so we sent them up to the dispatch center to kind of help them manage the chaos a little bit. And that's that's something that we kind of just kind of happened spur of the moment that we've really looked at since then. We're kind of incorporating that into some of our non-emergency jobs that we have, that that's something that they can do when we're really going and blowing, that they can kind of fill in at the dispatch center and help take calls. So that's something that came out of that day that kind of just happened fluidly and organically, that is going to continue on probably as part of our just standard operating procedure from now on.
Okay. And so on average, again, just kind of paint a picture for some folks, and of course every fire is a little bit different in size and scope and stuff, but on average, how many people would work one of these 96 fires?
Well, it just depends on the size of the fire, obviously.
Yeah.
So smaller fires, we try not to do anything with less than 2 people.
Okay.
The smallest fire we had would have had 2 people on it. And then obviously the bigger they get, the more equipment we need, the more complex they are. It's not always just necessarily size, but if you've got a 5-acre fire and it's surrounded, it's got 10 houses around it, then we're going to focus on that fire more than we would one that's in the middle of the woods that may be 40 or 50 acres. So it's not just how big they are, but how complex they are. And that day we did have a lot of fire in what we call the wildland urban interface, where it's people moving out, and there's houses and woods right next to one another, and that's pretty common, and we see that a lot more today than we probably have in the past. But we have a lot more wildland urban interface than we did. But that's we just depending on the fire, 2 to probably that day, I think the most we probably had on one was about 10 or 12 people.
Okay.
So 2 to 10 or 12 on each fire.
Okay.
And it was take a number. There were, just because you were on a fire didn't mean that was the only fire that we went to. There were a lot of people that was, as soon as we were done with one, by 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, if they were done with a fire by then, we were sending them to other fires. So it was, guys were out from 10 o'clock till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on the 18th, trying to finish up, or on the 20th, trying to finish up what had started on the 19th.
So there's a lot of gray areas, what you're saying.
There is.
So yeah, that you kind of have to, again, going back to the mental gymnastics or the mental chess, however you want to phrase it, that you are having to play, you and other people in leadership positions are having to play to make sure that these fires are addressed and are taken care of in a prompt and timely manner. So, well, I'll tell you what, Robert, let's actually take a pause real quick. I think this is a good kind of place to stop, and then we'll hop back into it, kind of wrapping up the day and looking into the future a little bit, which we've already done here for a second. But we're going to take a quick pause and hear a little bit more from our sponsors this month, Caribou Software.
For over 20 years, Caribou Software has helped loggers and small mills replace spreadsheets with a Logger's Edge, a software built to manage load tickets, pay landowners and contractors, and track job profits. Customers like Shelby Taylor Trucking and Big Creek Timber in Arkansas say it reduces errors, saves office time, and makes training easier. Learn more at caribousoftware.com or call 850-532-6206, extension 1.
Thank you again to our sponsors this month, Caribou Software. So, Robert, we've gone through most of the day for the most part, and from the work on the back end with you trying to make sure people are where they need to be, and the people there, kind of boots on the ground. So as you were wrapping up the day, you said you kind of got your last call around 11 p.m. Was that when things were starting to kind of die down a little bit?
Yeah, things were starting to calm down a little bit. We weren't having as many new fires. We still had a lot of fires going on. We still had we still had some fires out there that didn't have people on it. Matter of fact, one of the last calls that I got that day was asking me to actually go and I see a fire in Ouachita County because they were completely drained of people and didn't have anybody to send. And we actually had a U.S. Forest Service dozer that was going to go to that fire, and they wanted one of our people there, so they didn't have anybody else to send. And so I went to that fire in Ouachita County. But the day we used U.S. Forest Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Park Service on. We had all of our federal partners. We have an agreement with them, and we had all of them out fighting fire for us that day as well.
And you kind of mentioned this too before we started recording the episode, that you guys utilize them to an extent you'd never utilized them before, and these are agreements that have been in place for years and years,
decades. Yeah. We've had those. That master co-op fire agreement has been in place for decades, and we've used it. I mean, we use it every year. Generally, it really mostly with the Forest Service because it's a reciprocal agreement. We go and put out fires for them; they put out fires for us. But we've never really had that much where we had all of them on fires for us in one day.
And so something I kind of want to talk about too, if you don't mind, and I kind of want to see how much you can talk about this, is the physical, mental toll on the crews that were out there, on the folks that were out there working, going to a fire at 10 and it just not stopping till like 2 a.m. or whatever.
It's I've been there before. I started in the field, come up through the field, so it gets taxing at times for sure. When you have, especially like a week like we had there, where it just seems like you never catch a break. And we have we've never implemented it, but there are agreements with other southern states where we could bring in people from other surrounding states to help. We've never had to. We have sent people out of our state to other states, but we've never had to call those folks in. But when you get in a situation like that, that's the topic of conversation before the day is over with or before the week is over with. We're like, if this doesn't let up, we're going to have some help because at some point, I mean, when guys have been out for 12, 18, 20 hours in a row and then doesn't look like they're going to get much break the next day, you have to start, they have to get some rest or their decision-making processes go down. I mean, we do train a little bit for that, and guys kind of get used to it a little bit, but not, it's not something we get really good at.
You're not having 96 wildfire days that often.
We don't have them that often.
Well, and so if you don't, I mean, if you want to just kind of, to the department's own horn for a second, I mean, what was your reaction to seeing the work that they had done over even that whole week?
Well, and it is, I mean, it's a credit to our people, really. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, maybe in some of the leadership circles, worried about, because we had a ton of turnover, and let's face it, wildland fire is not for everybody. So some of those guys had never experienced that before. And it's one of those things where you never really know if you're going to be able to do it until you have to do it. I mean, I know people, and I'm not poking fun at them. I mean, it's like I said, it's not for everybody, but I know guys that have showed up on a fire and got out of the truck and been like, "No, call my wife to come get me because I'm not doing this," and that's fine. I mean, I'd rather them do that than wind up and get hurt or killed, because it is dangerous. But we were, there were questions about how well the the guys would be able to take it, and boy, did they take it and did well with it. I mean, it's a credit to them and their dedication to doing a good job to be able to go through that and come out the other side. And we really didn't have anybody that I know of that was like, nope, this isn't for me, and quit because of that stretch. So, yeah, it's really a credit to those guys and their willingness to put themselves in harm's way to protect the people and the resources of the state of Arkansas.
So what more? I know you mentioned the dispatch kind of stepping, or the aviation guys kind of stepping up to help dispatch sort through the chaos a little bit. But was there anything else throughout that day or that week that you guys kind of took away from that situation as things to work on or anything like that?
One of the biggest things we're trying to do, and we're almost there, is get a different internet provider to our dispatch center.
There you go.
So we had a cable internet provider. So the internet was run just down the power lines. So we're trying to get away from above ground cables on our internet, and so we're going through the state processes to do that, and we're pretty much there. But that was one of the big things we're doing, and then just trying to go through and stuff we've been working on for even before then, but really trying to do it after that day is try to get places where we can have GPSs on our equipment and on our guys, so it's easier for us to manage. It makes us more efficient when not necessarily when I'm not trying to get it where I can see them from a statewide, but where an incident commander on a scene can look at an aerial photo or look at a tablet and see where all his people are on a fire, and try to save as much time and energy as we can, because I've been in situations where plowing and you wind up parallel on a gravel road for 200 yards because you were 40 yards off of it and didn't know it. So get stuff and equipment in those dozers where they can see that kind of stuff. And then instead of plowing 200 yards parallel to a county road, we just bust out to it and we're done, So those are things we're working on to try to make us all more efficient and safer and better. So it's always going to be something we're working on. But yeah, we like to take days like that and try to learn from it and be better prepared the next time it happens.
I keep going to for some reason, a chess metaphor in my head about all of this, but in regards to the GPS stuff, it's like having a chessboard, but all your pieces are scattered throughout the room.
Right. And you can't see where they all are.
Exactly. Yeah. So having that just kind of to know, okay, here's what I have available to me and what can happen. That's good stuff. So Robert, we're in the tail end of February here as we're recording this right now. This is going to be for March's episode, but what are you guys looking at currently, either for March or just for the entire fire year in general of 2026, especially coming off a pretty hot and heavy season?
We just we had a little run back in January. Things got a little active for us. We've been in a bit of a drought lately. If you look at the U.S. Drought Monitor, it's gotten worse since the beginning of the year instead of better. Usually it gets a little better before now. We did get, we just got some rain this last weekend, and hopefully that'll last. But really, going into March is generally a windy, a little bit drier month than it's usually historically March is always one of our bigger months. So we'll be looking to see how that goes. The spring fire season is really determines how long and how bad it gets by how fast green up gets here. When spring green up hits, then it really shuts the spring season down. But I saw some trees bloomed out on the way up this morning, so we'll see how fast spring can spring and how fast the grass turns green. But we know it's February in Arkansas, so it may be 70 today and 40, 40 for a high next week. So we'll see how it goes.
I saw something that on the other day on social media that was like Arkansas. it's like an Arkansas quote unquote calendar or season calendar,
Yeah.
and it said we're here, and it was like fake spring, and then it was like third winter is next or something to that effect. So yeah, we're definitely kind of in a weird way.
Yep.
One thing I didn't ask Robert that I kind of want to ask real quick, and I may edit this earlier in the episode, we'll see, is was there any one, or it may not even be one cause, it's probably odds are it's not, but what was the main cause for all of those fires on the 19th in 2025?
We had a lot of power line breaks that day.
Okay.
Now, when you hear power line fires out west, it's a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Out west, it's because they have power lines slapping together. Here, we had a lot of power line breaks that day. I'm not going to say that was the number one cause, but there were a lot of power line breaks that day. But power line breaks, and then there were a lot of instances where people, were burning in their yard or had burned in their yard, and that happens quite a lot in the springtime. People burn a pile of leaves and they think it's completely dead and all burned up, and then if there's still a pile there, it's still hot down in it, and then you get some 40-50 mile an hour winds like we did, and it blows that cool layer off the top, and then there's hot embers underneath, and that's what starts the fire.
Gotcha.
So that we had some of that, and then we had some equipment use fires as well that day. Anytime in the spring we have a lot of those, and probably people notice it more up and down the interstate where you get driving down the interstate and you're like, why are there fires all up and down the road? Well, it's a big truck lost a wheel bearing, or somebody had a blowout or something like that, and that's starting fires. And those fires got pretty big that day as well. So there's a whole list of things that started started those fires, but the two biggest ones were probably power line breaks and debris burning.
And that was, again, just I'm assuming the power line breaks too was from all that wind that came in from the west.
Trees.
Yeah,
wind blowing trees over on the power lines.
Okay. Well, and so is there anything just from your position and any one listening to this that they can kind of keep in mind going into this year, especially into March, which we're in kind of a bit of a drought, to maybe help prevent some of that stuff?
Well, obviously, anytime you're going to be, and this is the time of year everybody wants to do yard work and start cleaning their yards up and burning leaves and getting rid of debris out of the yard. Just make sure that it's out before you leave. I mean, rake those piles around, make sure there's not any heat left in it. Douse it with water. If watch the weather, and if the weather says it's going to be windy, don't burn that day. So there's just general fire safety precautions is what I would say. Just be careful and be a little bit aware of what's going on around you before you light a big pile of leaves on fire.
Okay. Well, Robert, is there anything else that you want to add about that day, that week, or anything else you want to just say in general before we kind of wrap it up?
I do want to, and I know we talked about it a little bit, but I do want to make sure and put a shout out for the volunteer fire departments. Those are guys that are out there that are, they're doing it for nothing, and they're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And without the volunteer fire departments, we could not have gotten anything done that day. So a big shout out to them and the partnerships that they provide and the assistance they provide in doing what we do. So.
And I know that just some of my past work in news, kind of working in smaller communities, those communities rely on those folks
Absolutely.
like heavily.
Yes.
And so to see them kind of working with you guys to protect their communities and those resources in their communities is good to hear. So yeah, shout out to them. Well, Robert, thank you again, man, for joining me for the third time here on the show. We appreciate you coming in and talking with us about this maybe not so great trip down memory lane, but we appreciate the work that you guys are doing over at the division. So thank you.
Thank you.
And we want to thank you guys for joining us this month as well. As always, we want to say thank you and a special shout out to some guy named Rob /Rob McCormick for the use of our theme song, The Same Love. That's off of his album, The Folkster. You can find more of his music on Spotify. And as always, we have a link to his website where you can see music info or show show info about Rob and catch him live in person. That's going to be in the description of this episode. And we want to give a special shout out and thank you one last time to Caribou Software for their support of the show. So make sure you come back next month when we'll have a new topic, a new discussion, and a new Voice of Forestry.